Terrorism, protests, surveillance, human augmentation, sophisticated AI, shady conspiratory organizations with control of the government. Deus Exes fiction is close to our reality, and fears for a game that came out 16 years ago. In anticipation for Mankind Divided and maybe rake in that sweet SEO, I decided to make the credits roll in Deus Ex, Invisible War, Human Revolution, and Mankind Divided to see how well these games hold up to modern scrutiny. This is the world of Deus Ex. In 1993, Warren Spector wasn't really known as the industry legend that he is today, but one thing he did know was that he wanted out. He was tired of making the same old fantasy and science fiction games that he was making, so he decided to leave Origin Systems, his current employer, and join Looking Glass Studios so that he could work on his plan for a game set in the real world that had a big budget and non-stop action. Well, he never really got to work on that real-world game at Looking Glass. So when John Romero promised Spector an unfettered creative haven at Ion Storm, Spector jumped ship. Also maybe because he got laid off from Looking Glass. The thing is that Spector and his crew had ambitions. They wanted to make a story that pointed out how stupid most game stories were. A game inspired by the conspiracies of the time by a certain show called The X-Files. A lot of the conspiracies are in the final game, but some aren't really explained. Like this alien. They're just there, watching you. And scaring the heck out of you. Oh god. The game was planned to be released in 1998. Well, making a game so grand kind of made things get released a little bit later. So Deus Ex was released on June 17th, 2000, and 16 years later it's gained this almost cult status as the greatest game of all time. But it's one of those games that some people say is overrated. It doesn't hold up after all these years. Like this Metacritic review. This game is like so overrated. Played the first mission and already didn't like it. It's like playing a upgraded version of Doom 1. You know, the game that had stealth and crossbows and stuff like that. The AI was horrible. The controls was all over the keyboard. Horrible mix of RPG keyboard layout and FPS genre. The inventory is too small to hold much items. Gotta agree with Anonymous MC that maybe some people paid people to write good review because it's so much different when wait, what? Someone paid people to review give it I really suggest that you try a demo or something. You want to trust all those good fake okay conspiracy theory much? Absolutely horrible. This game is one of the worst I've ever played. All these reviews are fakes. I think someone paid someone to write all these positive reviews. Almost everyone says best game ever. Something along those lines. Don't buy it. It's freaking horrible. And they tried to deceive you with these reviews. I just hope that they don't deny my opinion to cover up the truth. What? It's like there's a conspiracy theory behind the game about conspiracy theories. What the heck? What? Deus Ex puts you in the combat boots and all leather jacket outfit of... no, not that. It puts you in the shoes of J.C. Denton, or Mr. Poopy Butthole if you choose to be, but, well, nobody's gonna acknowledge you as Mr. Poopy Butthole.
Welcome to the Coalition, JC. I might as well start using your code name.
After a really mysterious intro, Deus Ex just plops you onto the pier. You're just there. You've got the ability to do whatever, or so it seems. Your brother shows up and kind of ruins your day. Bro, I just want a crowbar because apparently my sunglasses are glued to my head, and who wears sunglasses at night? Anyways, like, seriously. Your brother presents kind of this three-pronged approach that the game presents: pacifism, long-range sniping, and demolitions. Well, the game is made in such a way that you can sneak past everyone. It's an option, a very janky option into that. Well, a lot of this game is kind of janky. The bad guys, well, they feel very blind. A lot of the combat with enemies kind of looks like this part from the intro. Very gripping. Amazing gameplay. The hit detection sometimes doesn't work, and if you try to trank dart someone, they just run around like one of those guys who cry censorship, especially at Japanese localized games. Sorry, that kind of got a little specific. But it's so good. The skill menu is something from a bygone era. You have to upgrade yourself into being good at anything. Case in point, shooting. Try the Call of Duty approach, and you won't hit the broadside of the USS Normandy unless you take a knee and, well, wait a while and line up the shot, kind of like you have to do in real life. It's one of those systems that you don't really see anymore, or in any of the later titles. You don't really get enough skill points to fully upgrade yourself, so each playthrough is different. There is no way you could see all this game has to offer without really cheating. Upgrading to certain proficiencies open up new avenues of play. There are some really worthless skills like swimming and environmental training. Pro tip, always carry a rebreather and a hazmat suit, so problem solved. Right? You could also see similarities between some of the mechanics of hacking and lockpicking that was implemented in future Fallout games. The areas are very open-ended and allow for a lot of experimentation. The gameplay is really about meaningful choices, something that I've been really emphasizing in my reviews. You have these things called augmentations, and you could only have a limited amount per body item, body part. So, and therefore you're locked out of the other ones. So each time you gotta like really analyze what kind of character you want to make. It's something that you really don't see. Here's my proposal. The mathematical equation for games are meaningful decisions divided by time equals quality, I guess. It's very abstract, but it's the best I could do right now for an equation. The presentation in this game is perfect. Though it looks bad and runs like Fallout 4 on a console. Earlier, I talked about like open-ended levels, and that's one of the highlights of this game. When you're not trying to break the game like I was doing during this playthrough for doing this review, well, the game is full of surprises. When you do something in the game reacts to that. Take this scene for example. On my first playthrough, I wasn't really on board with the game until this moment. You're part of an anti-terrorist organization, UNATCO. So part of your job is busting down terrorists. So eventually you come into contact with the terrorist leader who immediately surrenders and suggests that there's something more that meets the eye about your employer. Your commanding officer shows up and orders you to shoot the prisoner. And here, the game sets up with this moral quandary. You've had these doubts about your employer this whole time, but this guy is a bad guy. You don't want him to get away or anything. So it's something really that most of these games these days, they just make you select a choice from a menu. And it gives you options by telling you. Well, this game, it doesn't really do that. It makes you think for yourself. It makes it much more organic and open-ended. It really set the groundwork for like open-ended narrative in games that really hasn't really been repeated even in this series. I didn't even know that this was an option that I was going to do. When you do something that feels like acting out and doing something that the programmers didn't really feel like they meant you for you to do, like interrogating the prisoner when you should be executing him, your boss executes them. So, well, I got kind of angry, so I, took it out on her.
Augmentations.
And the game reacts to that. The story continues. No failure, no game over, man. You win. The game continues. And the storyline reacts to it. The characters reacts to that. And the whole game is designed pretty much like that. The soundtrack is pretty awesome. It's a lot of this cyberpunky techno that really fits in with the themes and feelings of the game. Well, except for the track that plays in the bar, it just feels so out of place. And a couple other times, there's tracks that don't feel like they belong there. The world design is kind of weird though, also, because it's the most grounded out of any of the titles in the series. Even though it's set in 2052, the most futuristic things in this game are the holograms and these computer monitors. The biggest gripe one would have about playing this game today is how poorly it runs and how it looks terrible. Some mods can clean it up for you, but it's not gonna make it look significantly better. But that is where the revision mod comes in. The Deus Ex revision mod is a community-made overhaul of the 2000 classic. It features new environments, new music, and new world-building detail. Basically, it's the same game, but not really. It's definitely the more interesting way to play this game. The level designs are more interesting and more modern. But it still retains Deus Ex's gameplay and the graphics are slightly better. The thing is that changes some of the levels up in ways that I don't like. The game's better overall, but you don't get some of the interesting things from the original. Like this scene with the bad guys talking in front of a statue of a hand reaching out for the world. It's very sinister. But in the revision mod, well, they're just standing in front of a couple monitors who... scary. I mean, the same idea, you get the same feeling. The shading, the face is a little bit more in the shadows, and everything seems a little bit more sinister, but that hand though, come on. So bear that in mind. Also, the soundtrack is different, so it's kind of a different game. For me, Deus Ex is unique, even when compared to its sequels. Its themes and conversations are something you don't really see in other games. No other games have bartenders that could quote philosophy, or where you could have a discussion with a big blue ball of AI about the role of government. The game has its soapboxes, but at the end of the day, it forces you to think about what kind of world or even government you want to live in. It doesn't really make a judgment call on any of these points that it makes. Yeah, the game is linear, but that's not really the point. People criticize Telltale games for giving the illusion of choice because they kinda do, but really Deus Ex and Telltale want to put you in certain situations and want the player to think about what they feel about the current situation. Do you put power back into the hands of the people? Or do you join the shady organization and rule from the shadows? Do you become a benevolent dictator with the help of a perfect AI? Well, the question is up to you. The thing is that people might have problems thinking of what the aforementioned Deus Ex comes in and why the title is called Deus Ex. Where does the Deus Ex Machina come in? The reference to Greek theater. Deus Ex Machina being the magic item or being that solves everything. Back in the day, it would be literally a statue of a Greek god that literally comes onto the stage from above and just solves all the problems in the plot. It was kind of lazy. Well, maybe creators meant for the game to be the Deus Ex Machina of game stories. Or maybe the player is the god of... The ideas presented in Deus Ex could have only been made in the turn of the millennium, the inspiration being a lens into the fears and optimism of the turn of the century. It's a product of old school game design. You don't really get a marker on your screen telling you where to go. You've actually got to pay attention to what people tell you and use your navigational skills. An art that I think has been really lost in video games at this time. Deus Ex was an ambitious game for its time and laid the groundwork for future games. The thing is that it's plagued by its ambition, which caused it to have terrible voice acting, bad graphics, and bad hit detection, and, well, a broken non-lethal option. It feels like this game would benefit greatly from a remake that takes the same gameplay and just fixes the problems, kind of like what's happening with New System Shock. Deus Ex's conspiracy theories and relevant topics might be because Warren Spector and the gang had some kind of crystal ball able to look into the future. Or maybe it's because they put every single nutty hobo idea that, well, maybe some of them had to stick. That's closer to the truth, but a lot of these fears feel so turn into the millennium. Maybe the sign that things, well, never really change.
Are you sure you pressed the right button?
I do not make mistakes of that kind.
Your hand might have slipped.
No, I wanted orange. It gave me lemon lime.
The machine would not make a mistake.
It's the maintenance man. He knows I like orange.
So you think the staff has some kind of plot?
Yes, they do that on purpose.